I want to be clear about the, quote, strength of our economy. Our economy over the last 5 years has been driven by a big increase in the labor force, which was largely because of a surge in immigration that is now trying to be controlled, and by government spending that grew over 9% year after year after year, twice the rate of growth of our economy. Okay? So our economy was weak before we got to the point of these threats from President Trump.
Anyway, enough of the fraud line. Let's go to Mark Carney, a.k.a. Justin Trudeau 2.0 on steroids.
I think he's Trudeau 1.0. Trudeau 0.5, like, you know what I mean? Trudeau 0.5. I don't know where he fits into the progression of Trudeau, but I don't think Trudeau has said or done anything in the last half decade that didn't come out of this guy's boring mouth.
Indeed.
For sure.
And without further ado, let's throw to Mr. Charisma himself.
Oh, God.
Yes, I support ending the consumer carbon tax, and to be absolutely clear, that's on consumers, it'd be on small businesses, it'd be on farms as well. The reason I do is twofold. One, politics is about people, and this has become too divisive for Canadians. Okay? Secondly, the contribution of the consumer carbon tax is a little less than 10% of our emissions reductions. I've spent a substantial portion of my career working on these issues, and there are better ways to accomplish those emissions reductions, particularly on my proposal, is that big polluters will pay Canadians, not taxpayers, big polluters will pay Canadians for their emission reductions and will improve the options for and the ability of those companies, or some of our most important companies, to get their own emissions down.
Sheila, the so-called big polluters, like Canadian steel companies, some of whom, like Algoma, are paying about one quarter of total revenues in carbon tax right now. And that's before the April 1st increase. Sheila, what I'm getting at is that Mark Carney, God bless him for being honest, that he's committed to carbon taxes. But for those voters out there on the fence, now that you know that carbon tax Carney is not going to make those carbon taxes go away, he's going to continue to make your life miserable with cost of living increases. What, Sheila, would cause anyone, even, a liberal, to vote for this man, given this decade of vandalism we've seen, basically under his proxy, if you will, Justin Trudeau?
Mark Carney's problem with the carbon tax is that you know that it's the carbon tax making your life more expensive. And that's, for him, the problem with the consumer carbon tax is it's just a tad too transparent. Like, it does add up in all these sorts of ways that you know it's doing it to you, but you can't see it at the grocery till. But you can see the consumer carbon tax on your electricity. You can see it on your home heating. You can see the consumer carbon tax. That's his problem with it. Like, it's making the cost of groceries more expensive because you've got to transport those groceries. You've got to cool or heat those groceries in the store. You've got to pay for the bricks and mortar building. And so it adds along the cost all the way. Mark Carney's problem is you can look on your bill and see the carbon tax on your electricity bill. So he says, what we're going to do? We're going to just kick it upstream. They can pass it along to the consumer, and it will be obscured from the consumer view. So that's the first problem. Now, here's the real problem for the Canadian economy. We've got Donald Trump in the United States saying, we're going to build everything in America again. We want the Rust Belt to be the Chrome Belt again. And what's going to happen? Trump's going to make the case to the Canadian manufacturer. These guys not only are not going to take away the carbon tax, they're going to stick it directly on you and make it worse. Why wouldn't you just come and do business in Ohio, where you're not going to be punished for being a builder?
Sheila, that's exactly where I was going with the Algoma Steel example, already paying about a quarter in carbon taxes of their total annual revenues. Forget about tariffs. What is a carbon tax but an indirect tariff? If I'm the CEO of Algoma, I'm doing what you just said. I'm looking at Ohio or Pennsylvania and saying, adios, Canada. My own government has made it too expensive for me to operate here at an acceptable, profitable level. And to your other point, going upstream, Sheila, surely you're not saying if the carbon tax doesn't apply to consumers, but only applies to the farmer, and then the trucker, and then the retailer, surely those sectors of the economy, they'll absorb the tax, won't they?
Right. Oh, definitely. They're not going to definitely never be tacked on to the cost of a consumer good, just hidden in the cost of a consumer good.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, but and let's not forget, like places like Algoma, they're getting it coming and going. They're going to get it taxed on their emissions, but they're also getting taxed on their inputs. Yep. Right? Because those are seriously energy intensive industries to manufacture steel. So just on your energy inputs, you're getting it and then going out the door. Why would you do business in Canada? Why?
Indeed. And here's another reason not to. Let's throw to our last clip on this, which is Mark Carney, a.k.a. Justin Trudeau's economic advisor for 5 years, weighing in on, well, let's try to make sense of what he's trying to say, folks.
I want to be clear about the, quote, strength of our economy. Our economy over the last 5 years has been driven by a big increase in the labor force, which was largely because of a surge in immigration that is now trying to be controlled, and by government spending that grew over 9% year after year after year, twice the rate of growth of our economy. Okay, so our economy was weak before we got to the point of these threats from President Trump. That's why we need big changes. That's the reason I'm here. That's why we need big changes to how we're managing this economy.
You know, Sheila, I'm going to cut to the chase here. Last week, I was at the Pierre Poilievre press conference in West End, Toronto. It was a brilliant presser for Mr. Poilievre, and it had nothing to do with excluding almost all of the mainstream media and only taking questions from independent media, such as ourselves included, Rebel News. But it was at a food bank, Sheila, and Poilievre made the profound point that going back to 2020, and that's the same year Mark Carney signed on as Justin Trudeau's economic advisor, this particular food bank, just one food bank in West End, Toronto alone, was servicing 10,000 regular clients. And in 2025, 5 years later, it is now servicing 70,000 regular clients. That is Mark Carney economics for you right there, Sheila.
Yeah, you know, I hope these Liberal leadership candidates can find the people who have been in charge for the last 10 years and ask them why they did all these terrible things to the Canadian economy. Like, that's, again, why they couldn't have Ruby Dalla on that stage,
yep.
Right? Because Ruby Dalla, while she is a Liberal, is the only one not involved in the economic terrorism we've been subject to at the hands of the Liberal Party. She can say, like, okay, I didn't do any of this. These guys did. Mark Carney, the phone call's coming from inside the House. He's complaining about the exact time he has been an official economics advisor to the leader of the Liberal Party of Canada, which is a convenient title to get him around ethics rules.
So, Sheila, who is buying this rubbish? It's very reminiscent
the
of
media.
what we saw. Well, yeah, of course, but they have a skin in the game. You know, they have their funding that they're fretting about losing and going bankrupt. But it is very reminiscent of the U.S. election last year, in which Kamala Harris, who was the vice president, i.e. number 2 in charge of the past 4 years in the USA, branding herself as an agent of change.
Right.
Much like Mark Carney says, I'm an outsider. You're the ultimate insider.
Right.
You know, Americans didn't buy it. South of the border, do you think anyone, because I've seen some disturbing polls, Sheila, about allegedly the Liberals narrowing the gap, that it might be a horse race when the next election is called. Are people being bamboozled, or are these polls, I guess, push polls, I guess propaganda more than actual accurate scientific polling?
There could be some of that. But as I said on Monday, I do not have a lot of faith in my fellow Canadians who are east of, let's say, Winnipeg. I don't have a lot of faith in them. They've let us down repeatedly. I don't understand why they vote the way that they do. They see crime and out of control inflation and out of control housing costs, and they can't afford groceries. And yet they continue to vote for the party that brought them all of those things. And out here in the West, we have not been doing that. We couldn't vote blue any harder than we do. So I don't know. But I think hopefully it will go the same way as the American election, wherein the media and the Liberals are completely blindsided by what unfolds on Election Day.
Indeed, and I don't know if you could see it, Sheila, but super producer Olivia put up the most recent poll right off the hopper by Ipsos, and it's showing basically a 2% lead for the Liberals. I just can't believe it. Maybe I'm a Pollyanna here, but it doesn't make sense.
Here's the thing, what I said to Ezra last night on the live stream. This is all fine. This is a honeymoon bump, because we have to remember the reasons for the prorogation. One of them is to allow the Liberals time to select a new leader or just coronate a new leader, as the case may be. The other reason is the $200 million money laundering scandal of the Green Slush Fund. The Liberals would not turn over those documents, which will, in my prediction, show evidence of serious conflicts of interest and quite likely crimes, like the stuff that you would go to jail for a very long time if you were in the United States. The Liberals allowed Parliament to devolve into gridlock because of that, because they don't want to turn those documents over, which will be ultimately turned over to the RCMP. And, a lot of the people involved in that are now donating to the Carney campaign. Annette Vucherin, head of the Green Slush Fund, maxed out her donations to Mark Carney. So take that for what you will. But I think we're going to learn a lot more about Mark Carney in the coming days. And if you think the conservative researchers haven't been going through every document that they can get their hands on, prepared then to be surprised, because things are already coming out today about how Mark Carney couldn't even tell the truth last night. He hasn't been telling the truth about when Brookfield decided to move to the United States. You're going to see trickle scandals of Mark Carney coming out, and just wait for his ethics disclosures.
On that point, and Pierre Poilievre called him out as a liar. He said they didn't make that move until January, but it was voted on October 31st, Halloween.
Oh, hi, it's Ezra Levant here in Toronto with an important message, because we need your help. Independent journalism in Canada is under attack. Government censors, big tech deplatformers, and the dying legacy media are all working together to maintain exclusive control on the information you receive. They don't want you to hear other voices like ours, and they really don't want you to be informed and to think for yourself. That's why the work we do here at Rebel News is so important. Our on-the-ground reporting, independent news shows, and special content you won't find anywhere else. It's all designed to give you trustworthy information and alternative viewpoints so you can decide for yourself. We don't get government money, and we are not owned by some big global conglomerate. We're funded by people just like you, so please support independent journalism and help us continue our work by subscribing and becoming a Rebel News Plus member today, right here on the page. Go to rebelnewsplus.com.